All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is June 10th. Welcome, my dear friend, Tom. Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm glad. I hope you're better than you were feeling last week.
Yeah,
Are
well,
you
thank you
are you
so
getting
much.
well now?
Yeah, I'm feel much, much better. Thank you so
Okay.
much. And I miss you so much. I miss my audience so much. It's for been a month. So many things happened. But the first thing first, you see the picture behind me. This is what
Yes.
I'm going to talking about today. And maybe just a few hours ago, President Trump says that if he believes there is an insurrection in LA, he will invoke the Insurrection Act. So, from your point of view, what's the possibility for President Trump to start the invoke Insurrection Act?
I think it's, very strong that he will if the riots or demonstrations or whatever continue. Now,
Mhm.
looking at the picture behind you, according to Democrats, according to CNN, that's a mostly peaceful protest.
I know.
Buildings on fire, police officers being attacked, bottles thrown at everybody. That's peaceful. Just like they were trying to say after the George Floyd riots, when billions of dollars in damage and injuries and people dying happened, that was mostly peaceful.
Hmm.
Well, the part that wasn't peaceful was extremely not peaceful, and that's what you have here in LA. And the problem here, just like the problem was in Minneapolis after the George Floyd riots
Hmm.
started,
Hmm.
was, the governor there, who later became a Democratic
Hmm.
vice presidential candidate under Kamala Harris. He's basically a communist. And now you have, in California, LA, the state, the city, is basically run by socialists slash communists,
Right?
insurrectionists, whatever. Somebody
Hmm.
like, remember, a communist like the mayor of LA, Bass.
Yep.
Uh, it's unbelievable. And
Yep.
then you have Newsom saying he's going to sue the Trump administration if they deploy,
Hmm.
the National Guard or the Marines or someone else down there.
Hmm.
Well, go ahead.
Yep.
What he is doing and what they're all doing is making it so that the Democratic Party is not going to recover. This is no way to help them recover in a couple of years, whether it's the next midterm election or the next presidential election.
Hmm.
Um, it's just absurd. It's absurdly stupid on their part.
Exactly. Yeah, you mentioned, thank you so much, Tom. You mentioned that some people from their part said that as a most peaceful event. Okay. So within the picture, and you when you saw the picture, when you saw the videos, and they still said this is a peaceful thing. So how can people just lie in front of your eyes, and are they are they believe that people will trust them?
Yeah, they
They
get away
always
with it. I remember back during the George Floyd riots, you
right.
have at the time, I think the reporter's name was Velchi, who
Mhm.
was on CNN, and he's standing in front of the camera and microphone. These are mostly peaceful protests, and behind him,
I
half the
remember
city's
that.
on fire. It's
Right.
like, are you that stupid or blind or ideologically tainted that you can't tell the truth or
Hmm.
don't want to tell the truth? And
Hmm.
now this is basically deja vu all over again. They come
Right.
up with the same rhetoric. Oh, it's mostly peaceful, and oh, it's not bad, and then you look and you see how many dozens of police cars on fire and
Right.
smashed and damaged,
Hmm.
vandalism, looting in buildings in downtown LA,
Hmm.
and who pays for that?
Yeah,
Ultimately, the taxpayers are going to pay for all the damage that's being done.
exactly.
And these reporters, with their stupid reporting, aren't held accountable either for lying.
So this is looks to me that they never learned a lesson. Think about 2024. The Democrats and then the lefties that they lost big, and they
Yep.
still don't learn from that, and
No.
still keep, yeah, lying to people, to the
Yeah.
world. And then, yeah, so that's the other thing I'd like to discuss with you. Do you believe that there are sane people behind the LA riots and the 2020 Black Lives Matter, Antifa rights. Do you think
Yeah,
they're
the rioters like that, this can go back, you can go back 20 years. None of these are spontaneous. Oh, the public's outraged, so they're going to demonstrate and turn it into a riot. They're funded. You see when these so-called protesters,
Mhm,
demonstrators arrive
mhm,
wherever they're protesting, whether it's Minneapolis or Los Angeles or somewhere else, they arrive and they just magically have pre-printed signs
mhm,
made by a commercial sign maker.
right,
They have all the equipment that they want to cause damage,
mhm,
Molotov cocktails
right,
or cinder block that they break into smaller pieces so they can throw it at
mhm,
police officers and demonstrators. None of that's spontaneous. That's funded,
mhm,
planned, and executed.
mhm,
Um, actually worldwide, but specifically here as well.
mhm,
And right now, a lot of people are looking at it, especially globalists, like they
mhm,
have got to do this. They've got to try to discredit Trump, to bring Trump down.
right.
And what's stupid about it is it makes Trump more popular for standing up to it, for trying to stop it.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I think Trump is the first one to admit that after the George Floyd riots started, he was slow to nationalize
Mm,
troops or anybody else to try to stop it. He was
mm,
hoping the governors would rise up, would ask for the help,
mhm,
would bring a stop to it in their own
mhm,
states and the mayors in their own cities.
mhm,
And when they didn't, finally, then Trump finally acted later on.
mhm,
Right now, you have similar circumstance. Governor Newsom in California isn't going to call out anybody.
mhm.
And Mayor Bass, who's an avowed communist for her whole life,
Yeah.
basically,
Mhm,
has basically put handcuffs on the police so that they don't react and they don't stop it,
mhm,
and they're stuck. And now
mhm,
you have, federal law enforcement like ICE or Border Patrol as they're executing these arrests and following the laws of the United States. They're basically encouraging the demonstrators to attack them.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. That everybody see the how the things turning on. And our audience know that most of our audience know that you work for FBI for 30 years and for 5 years you work as a assistant director of FBI and you in charge to the organizational criminal section in FBI. So if the question is if the same people behind this kind of illegal riots, can they consider as a organizational criminal?
Yeah, they can use a number of laws, and I
Mhm,
just heard I think Pam Bondi mentioned the Hobbs Act. And a lot of people we used the Hobbs Act a lot when I was in the FBI. If you had an armed robbery of a jewelry store, for instance, it might not be a federal crime to commit that robbery by itself,
mhm.
but if that jewelry store was engaged in interstate commerce, and
Ah,
the robbery or the burglary or whatever affected the
mhm,
ability of that organization or business to conduct interstate commerce, that
mhm,
violated the Hobbs Act. Now, normally, the different prosecutor offices could place a threshold, and most of them at the time when I was an agent in Chicago, they
mhm,
typically placed a $100,000 threshold. So if
uh-huh,
somebody committed a burglary in a store uh, or a business or something that was doing business in interstate commerce, which almost every business is. You
mhm.
can't operate a 7-Eleven. Where do the products come from that you
Right,
put
right.
on the shelf?
Of course,
Where,
yeah.
where does the money go when you pay all that? So
Uh-huh.
that's typically interstate commerce. Almost
Mhm,
everything is interstate commerce
mhm,
in the modern era,
uh-huh.
and you
So,
know that's
so,
what they can enforce the Hobbs Act. They can bring that to bring charges against the organizers, against the funders of this.
okay. So you mean this is in federal level, right?
Yeah, even though it's typically a state crime,
Mm-hmm.
if that business is doing business in interstate commerce, which again, where do the products come from that they put on the shelf? Where does the profit go? Then they can use the Hobbs Act. And I think I've been surprised over the years since how many times we used it when I was in the FBI,
Hmm.
and then having been now retired out of the FBI since 2008, I
Hmm.
rarely have heard any prosecutor mention the use of the Hobbs Act. And
Hmm.
now, you hear now today or yesterday, I hear some prosecutors saying we could use the Hobbs Act. Well,
Which
no
is a
kidding.
smart move, right? It's a great move
A
to
very
use.
good move.
Right. So, Tom, do you mind to spell the Hobson for me?
Hobbs is Hobb, and
Mm.
then named after a politician named Hobbs. So it's called the Hobbs Act,
Ah,
Hobbs, the federal law.
okay, great. What a good news. So that means if the state don't want to do anything, that federal can get involved and federal can
Absolutely.
charge
Yeah, they
the
can.
criminal.
Well, and they've been reluctant to, but of course, obviously during the Biden administration and before him, when Obama was president, oh,
Mhm.
you wouldn't hear of that. They're not
Mhm.
going to bring charges against the George Soroses of the world that pay for these demonstrations. They're not spontaneous. They're
Mhm.
planned. They're funded. They're
Right,
executed as part of a national or international plan.
right.
And in this case, it's because the people that want these riots to happen hate
Mhm.
Trump.
Right.
And that's what they're hoping is to discredit Trump.
Hmm.
Only this time, in the second term, I think Trump is wiser to their game, how
Hmm.
they do this and what they do and how they do it. So
Hmm.
that's why you're going to see Trump use the powers that he has to crush these insurrections. And
Hmm.
these are actual insurrections.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I saw some news, information this morning, from a GPS expert. His name is Tony Saruga, and he said he's doing the GPS uh, location for a long time, and he have a group of people, experts, work together. And his information is more in-depth, deep data, and incinerators in LA. Um, at least 309 of the device appear to residency in $10 million residencies from Southern California's like Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Malibu, Rancho Santa Fe, San Francisco, Palo Alto, to New York, Atlanta, Houston, Seattle, Maui, Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, etc., etc. And 79% of those fly private jet 3 or more times per year. So they are very like billionaire trust fund kids. So these kids, these are like rich kids. They find about 309 device are from these kids or young people. Maybe not kids, they're young people. Or they are who are they? We don't know. But it's so interesting. And they are just not only go to the LA riots, some other riots. So this is the newest finding from the GPS experts. Is that
Oh,
surprising?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Who are these people? They're rich people. They're very rich people.
Yeah, really. Deep state and internationalists, globalists,
Hmm.
people like that, World Economic Forum people. I
Hmm.
think a lot of these insurrections are being directed
Hmm.
out of England, Great
Ah,
Britain. And so you have the British intelligence service working with the CIA. They kind of make a global deep state, and they're causing the problem of why we can't get peace in the Ukraine. They're undermining Trump.
right.
They get U.S. politicians to undermine them, like Lindsey Graham and
Hmm.
Blumenthal,
Hmm.
excuse me, who just recently went to Ukraine, and they're encouraging funding to continue the Ukraine war and use it as an anti-Russia excuse. That, oh, they've got to stop Russia for the sake of democracy. They're
Hmm.
not interested in democracy. They're interested in closing down democracy in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
especially Trump, and they're scared to death of Trump. The globalists,
Mm-hmm.
they hate him. That's why they've threatened his life. They've threatened his freedom with the lawfare and everything else they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, Trump has been pretty much able to stay alive, for one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and to stop that effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually saw a poster on the internet that they are trying to hire people, very brave people, strong people to do some job, tough job. So the job's name is No King. So they're gonna do that on this month, 14th. And the king, they said this is Trump. So no king is against Trump. All right. And then how much you know how much they pay for one person to work for one day, 1 week, 6,500 to
Yeah.
12,000 for 1 week. So they are trying to hire people all over America. So
Well,
this
they've
is
gotten away with this, and they wouldn't have been able to years ago.
uh-huh,
And not to brag about how different things were when I was an FBI agent,
sure.
but these groups would be infiltrated, they'd be investigated, they'd be prosecuted.
Hmm.
But really, since the Obama administration, you don't see any of that. In the short time Trump was in power during his first term,
Hmm.
they just attacked him, with all these judges making decisions and everything else. So he was pretty well swamped trying to keep his head above water,
Hmm.
and they did everything they could to make sure he didn't get reelected, which is what
Hmm.
happened. So
Hmm.
now they were doing everything they could, they thought, to keep him from getting elected to his 47th term,
Hmm.
and that failed. So
Hmm.
now, this is the next thing they're doing is cause these riots in cities, do things like this that will discredit Trump. And the stupidity on their part is it's only making Trump stronger. The American people now have been awakened and see through it. They
Hmm.
now know that this is absolutely like an insurrection
Right,
aimed at the United States, aimed at Trump. When you
right,
see pictures in Los Angeles of hundreds of people throwing bricks, throwing rocks, and setting buildings and cars and police
right,
cars on fire,
right.
and then you see how many Mexican flags, flags
Yeah.
from
Okay.
the Middle
See the
East,
picture.
flags from Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
all these foreign flags. So you have people that have come into the country, presumably from those countries illegally,
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go back to those countries, but they're waving the country flags, the
Yeah.
Mexican flag or the Argentinian flag or the flag of Hamas or some of these other groups.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the hypocrisy of these groups is that they come to the United States, they have no intention of leaving or being
Mm-hmm.
deported back out of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they're waving the flag. The picture behind you on the
Yeah.
screen behind you
Mm-hmm.
of a guy waving the flag of Mexico. How
Mm-hmm.
stupid is that? Okay,
Right.
go back. Go back to Mexico if it's so great there.
You guys come from there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
they
the,
have no intention of staying in Mexico or going back.
right, right. Good point. Good point. And Tom, what do you think when President Trump said that the insurrection will start to invoke, what gonna happen? So what's this law will bring to California or bring to the country?
I'm sorry, which law did you say?
The Insurrection Act.
Well, the laws that they can bring is that he can, if the local authorities don't quell a rebellion, or an insurrection or violent activity like that, then he can go ahead and deploy federal assets, not just federal law enforcement, which is already on the ground in the whole country,
Mhm.
but military assets as well. So whether
Mhm.
it's National Guard or the Marines or
Mhm.
whatever it's going to be. And I
Mhm.
think that I think that the liberals and libertarians and all these other people thought that they could intimidate Trump into not doing that.
Mhm.
That say, oh, if you deploy troops, that the insurrection, it will get worse. The
Mhm,
demonstrations will get worse and all of that. And I think Trump has basically taken the position, I don't care. I'm going to enforce the law. I'm
mhm,
going to maintain peace.
mhm,
And I'm not going to let them put their agenda in, which
mhm.
prevents the U.S. economy from growing again
Right.
by having manufacturing grow again
Mhm,
and some of the efforts that they're making.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. So there is an argument between Newsom and President Trump. And Newsom said that, come, if you want to arrest me, come here, arrest me. Do you think it will happen? Or it can
I
it
think that he
happen?
doesn't want to make Newsom a martyr and make it worse. I think he just likes how it is that Newsom just completely looks ineffective, that
Hmm.
he can't maintain law and order in the state of California. Between the mayor of LA, Bass, and Newsom, they couldn't contain the fires that happened, a couple of months ago.
Hmm.
They can't fight forest fires. They can't manage the forest properly. They can't ensure that the water, they were sending water coming
Hmm.
from reservoirs in the north of California and
Hmm.
sending it out to the Pacific Ocean. So,
Hmm.
so again, who steps in to fix that? Trump. And so now that water is being sent south to Southern California where it's badly needed with all the fires and everything else that's happening there. So it's an interesting tug of war. I think that what Newsom has done is basically destroy any chance he might have ever had to winning a national office. He cannot run for governor again. So
Hmm.
his next thing was that he was going to run for president. No
Yeah.
way. That's fine. Go ahead and run.
Hmm. Hmm. So right now we see that on by today, Trump administration already add another maybe 2,000 National Guard to LA area. Um, so there is argument is President Governor Newsom did not asking for the help, and without the governors asking, can President have the military go to
Yeah,
the
he
state?
can, and he's doing that because of if it rises to the level of being rebellion, actual level of violence like that, and the state authorities are doing little or nothing to stop it, he has the authority to go ahead and stop it himself. I
Mhm,
think he was reluctant to do it during his first term. I think he learned a lesson, and I think he's going to do it here. And if nothing else, show these demonstrators and the people that fund these demonstrations that they're
mhm,
not going to get away with it. I
mhm.
think what they really need is the FBI is very capable of infiltrating these groups to figure out who funded them. Where's
Ah,
that funding coming? And
that's
charge
good.
those people with
Hmm.
conspiracy and aiding and abetting the rebellion. And I
Okay,
think that what we need to see is some of those people be prosecuted. And
great.
they may be billionaires, they may be high level financiers or globalists from overseas.
Hmm.
Wherever they are, they
Hmm.
can be figured out,
Hmm.
found, and the evidence can be gathered. And if use wiretaps, use undercover operations, do what they have to do,
Hmm.
and bring this to a stop. Not
Yeah,
just in LA, but the idea that they can raise an army to cause a rebellion anytime, anywhere they want to. That's got to stop.
that's a good news to us. This may be a start point to destroy all of the network behind this kind of riots. And thank you so much, Tom. You mentioned that when the riots raise up to a rebellion, then the president have the rights to deploy the National Guard, even the military, to the certain particular area. So
Correct.
what's the definition of the rebellion? So how you define the rebellion, which is, I think, very important.
Well, it's a judgment call, but when you see attacks on law enforcement, you see law enforcement and other vehicles being set on fire and severely damaged, extensive property damage. You
Sure.
see buildings being looted or set on fire,
Mhm.
then that would meet even a conservative definition of a rebellion.
Okay, that's great. So the LA situation is definitely a typical rebellion, and
Exactly.
they're getting worse right now. And seems like they will do the same thing in the other cities, the other big cities like New York, Chicago, San Francisco, etc., Houston. And then probably we need a national action, like military action to
Yeah, they're
to
going to have to, but it'll have to be justified place by place, what's going on in Los Angeles. And if the same thing happens in Chicago, then do it, go after them in Chicago, go after it in New York, wherever the leaders of this rebellion decide to do it,
Mhm,
funding looters and rioters and demonstrate all of that, providing the money and the means for
mhm.
them to actually get the wherewithal to attack law enforcement, to attack business, to attack private citizens.
Right, right. And you mentioned that FBI have the capability to investigate who is behind all these things. And maybe there are high profile people. So do you really believe that the FBI have they dare to confront these high profile people? These are very famous people. These are very
It's all
um
right if they have the right backing, nobody's going to be above being investigated or go after it.
mhm,
Back during the time when I was in the bureau, when George W. Bush was president,
mhm.
um, the FBI with a special prosecutor, Fitzgerald, went after the vice president of the United States.
It's
And he was a Republican during a Republican administration. They went after him. They convicted his assistant, Scooter Libby, and
mhm,
Scooter made just scream bloody murder. I'm not going to jail. I can't go to prison. Da, da, da. And so what happened is that he was about ready to cooperate against Cheney and say that Cheney issued the orders for him to do some of the things he did, which was one of the illegal things was outing a CIA uh, agent publicly, which was a
mhm,
crime. And when he said he's not going to jail, Bush commuted his sentence. So he didn't pardon him. He didn't take away the conviction. Scooter Libby still lost his law license, but he knew then he was not going to prison. And so then he didn't cooperate anymore. And
mhm,
the investigation basically fizzled out because they needed him to cooperate to go after Cheney.
mhm.
And when he knew he wasn't going to prison, he didn't cooperate anymore.
Oh, I
But
see.
that shows, at the time, the FBI could go after, during a Republican administration, a Republican leader, a Democratic leader,
Mhm,
anybody,
mhm,
without regard to, I can't go after this guy. He's too high
mhm,
on the political food chain. So they
mhm,
could do it.
mhm,
They just haven't had the courage. And when you see some of the, what's happened starting under James Comey,
mhm,
and then Christopher Wray, and then now Patel is in there trying to turn the table,
mhm,
and we'll see how far he gets.
mhm.
Or Pam Bondi. They're going to need prosecutions. They're going to need to gather the evidence,
Right.
use their sensitive techniques, which they're capable of,
Mhm,
and then start grand jury proceedings and indictments against some of these individuals
mhm,
and start putting some of the high-ranking people in prison and
mhm,
bring this to a halt, not just here in LA or
mhm,
in the United States, but just send the message that this is no longer tolerable
mhm,
and the FBI is no longer in the pocket of the Democrats in particular or the liberal politicians, the
mhm,
Obamas, the Bidens, people like that.
mhm. Well, well, we'll see. We'll see. What a good story. Thank you for telling us the story that you experienced. But what do you think of the workload that FBI will face to this kind of riots? It will
Well,
add.
they'll have to prioritize what cases and what they're doing in that. Now, right now, unlike the so-called Summer of Love back after the George Floyd case,
Mhm,
you don't have these riots happening in every city. You don't have it happening countrywide
mhm,
simultaneously. There's
Mm-hmm.
only, 7 or 8,000 FBI agents. They get spread pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they can pick out the most strategically important cases and do it, see them through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're capable of it. Now,
Okay.
does Patel have the backing? Does Bondi? Is Trump really going to do it? We'll
Mm-hmm.
see.
Mm-hmm. So the good news is they can do it. So
They
this
can, yes, they
okay.
can. They have the capability, they have the expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have the will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. That's the key. Do they have the will to do so? Yeah. And the other case that people are really care about is the Epstein list, the name list. And then last week, there's argument between Trump and Elon Musk. And then Epstein name list is once again catching people's eyes. And at that time, people are just waiting for FBI or push DOJ to release the name list. And now the LA riots happened. I think they are priority or focus were moved to the LA event, the riots. So what do you think about Epstein list? And do
I
you
think the
think,
list, I think that's pretty much out there of who Epstein had on his plane, who
right?
flew to the island,
Uh-huh.
the Clintons and the people like that. So there's a lot of information about that. Doesn't necessarily mean, when Musk threw Trump's name out saying, well, Trump was,
Mhm.
he met Epstein 30 years ago or something.
Mhm.
But there's no evidence that Trump was, and in fact, Trump shunned him when he found out more about what Epstein was really doing.
Right.
And that's why, he was banned from Mar-a-Lago, for example. Trump
Right.
basically said, you're not welcome here anymore.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I think that there's just the fact that he was on a list or that he knew Epstein, all these people know each other. They're all at the highest levels.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't mean they were engaged in criminal conspiracies together.
Right, right. That's true. And on about the argument between Trump and Elon Musk, is that surprise you? Or do you consider it's a big issue or it's just kind of a little argument between two men?
Well, at first, when I first heard this whole thing start, I thought it was contrived. I thought they're pretending this war with each other,
Ah,
and that Trump was going along with it because Musk, his businesses were being burned and his cars were being damaged, and all this activity was anti-Musk. And that if he demonstrated that he was not in Trump's pocket, that he was anti-Trump and arguing against Trump and arguing against the big beautiful bill and
mhm,
all of that, that maybe that would buy a little bit of peace for Musk. Don't
mhm.
forget, he's been under death threats now for like Trump has.
Right.
So, so it may have just been to me, it could have been faked just to, take the pressure off of trying to go after Musk as being a partner of Trump.
So basically you don't think it's a big deal.
No, no, I think it'll be resolved before too long, and they'll
Okay.
they'll kiss and make up, maybe publicly, maybe privately, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I don't think it's going to last.
Sure. Yeah. The reason I'm asking you this question is because this is a very, very big news and a big topic in among the Chinese community, either in the American Chinese community or I think in mainland China. This is a big topic, and some people, especially the mainland China, they are kind of happy to see Trump and Elon Musk are not as good friends as before. So you think that they will? So first of all, your opinion is this is not a big deal, and then it will solve. The problem will solve. They will become a friend again. Maybe not as good as before, but they'll still maintain as a friends. Is that what you believe?
I think that it'll be, I guess, more private. They're not going to be publicly
Uh-huh.
exchanging, bad comments and everything. I think that's already died down. I
Hmm.
think Elon Musk may realize that he's gone too far. He said so many things about Trump that he shouldn't have said because they just weren't true.
Right, right,
And uh, and it's hurting his own business. So when
right.
you have Tesla stock going down and some of the other financial interests of Musk
Hmm.
being damaged by Musk, I
Hmm.
think that he's going to tone it down
Okay, and see, yeah.
Now
The,
we'll see. We'll see if they kiss and make up, or they just stop calling each other bad names, or what's going to happen here.
yeah, at some point when I see the whole argument, at some point they're just like a two big boys. It's just like they don't like each other and then they fight and then they just calm down a little bit. And then there are one narrative said that Moscow may be used by some foreign government, for example, by Chinese government, and or saying that a mosque is the assets of Chinese government to come here to try to destroy Trump administration, try to destroy the American. What do you think about this
Well,
narrative?
I don't think so, and I think that that Musk has been trying to take credit for getting Trump elected.
Right.
So if he came here to damage Trump or damage his election chance, he didn't do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, you can argue whether he did enough to get him elected. Uh, I think that, my opinion, Trump had enough popular support without Musk. He was
Hmm.
going to be reelected.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he was going to win the swing states and the popular vote and the electoral college vote because Trump had the momentum and the people were so fed up
Right.
with the Biden administration and the Democrats and all the people covering in the news media and all of that, that Trump was going to win with or without Musk's help. So you
Right.
could argue that Musk, realizing that, wanted to get in on it and be able to help share the credit for
Hmm.
helping him get elected.
Right. Well, Musk
But
could
I
be
don't.
a big help, but just like you said, without his help, Trump will still win in
Yeah, I
2024.
think so. I think so.
Yeah, but we appreciate his help, and he's have courage to stand up to all in for the election. This is a good
Yeah.
thing, but still, the reality is Trump has enough votes for react. And then yeah, they start arguing about the BBB, big beautiful bill. So what do you think about the possibility that the BBB will pass and become a law? They passed the House, and
I
how
think
about
it's going to pass
okay,
eventually and become the law. There's too many things in there that Trump really wants. And part of that is to make sure that the tax cuts passed during his first administration don't expire or don't get taken away, that they stay in effect. Uh, and some of the other things that he was shooting for,
mm-hmm,
um, Social Security being tax free and some of those benefits that he's wanted, no
mm-hmm,
tax on tips, many of the things that everything Trump campaigned on, he's trying to do.
right,
And so you can't accuse him of campaigning and making all these promises of what he's going to do and then not do them or not try to do them.
mm-hmm,
So I think that's where the problem is. The other problem for Trump is that you have so many rhinos, you have so many Republicans that don't back Trump, so many
right,
Democrats, obviously, that don't, so many now independents that he's got to keep the momentum of the popular support that he had to get elected.
right,
So
right.
so I think that gives him power and he needs to keep it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yeah, you think that it will pass eventually,
I think
which is good. And personally, do you support this bill? The
privately,
uh-huh.
yes.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
there's always going to be some pork in these bills and there's going to be
Not
some
per
beans
it's
and all
not
that.
perfect. Yeah.
But the majority of that bill is very good.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Yeah. Let's hope that they passed and become a law, and then it will be a good achievement of Trump administration. And also, the last question is about the trade deal, and the negotiation right now is between China and US. Excuse me. Do you really believe that the China will follow the law, will honor the agreement if they have agreement? We don't know if they will have agreement between them, but if they have agreement, do you really believe that Chinese government will honor the agreement? And we know that they did not honor that last time. So how come they will honor that this time?
because of the tariffs, because of the threats that, Trump has put in with the high tariffs that, the economy of China is fragile.
Hmm.
And, Xi Jinping knows that. And the
Hmm.
Chinese negotiators know that, and the American negotiators. So I think they'll make a deal.
Okay.
And I think for the most part, if they make it, much of what the deal was last time was honored by the Chinese. The Chinese paid money that went to agriculture in the U.S. and the farmers made millions of dollars and
Mhm.
things like that. And I think for the most part, that's going to happen again.
Okay, well, that's a good news. And then you mentioned that the tariff is a very, very good handler or a weapon to push on China to honor this agreement. Is that
Not just China, but all of the predictions from all of these people of how terrible the tariffs were going to lead to,
yeah. Okay.
economic warfare,
Yeah.
disaster, and everything. So far, Trump looks like a genius
Yeah.
because you've had all of these, once you put all these tariffs out on, 70 countries,
Hmm.
they all came begging. We
Hmm.
want to talk about it. We want to straighten this out. And then when he did, in business, when you make an offer, it's called an invitation to negotiate. That's
Hmm.
how Trump does business, the art
Right,
of the deal. And
right, right.
so he puts these high tariffs on various countries, and
Hmm.
then they come back and want to negotiate it. So he lowers the tariff, and then they lower theirs. The
Hmm.
countries that he put tariffs on have had tariffs on us all along.
Right,
So Trump is basically saying, if you're going to do it to us, we're going to do it to you.
right.
So here it comes.
So this is
70% tariff. Lower your tariff, and we'll lower ours. And he's done that.
right, right. So actually, this is the weapon that given by the other countries because yeah, they have the tariffs for our product,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Trump used it and very smartly use it, and it looks like it works very well so far.
So far.
Yeah.
So far.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see. And so this is a good news to either American or a Chinese people or Chinese business. So we'll see.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, we have a lot of information here, and then thank you so much for your time and for inputs of the situation. And yeah, I'm glad that you think that Trump will or very high possibility will invoke the Insurrection Act. As a Californian, I do believe we need it, and we need it badly. We need back to law and order. So when our governor cannot do that, President Trump will
The
do
average
that.
citizen, not just in California, but across country, agrees with you.
Right.
They want law and order. They want peace. They don't want to see people getting hurt, police being hurt, buildings being torched, and all of that.
Right.
And they don't like the appearance. And I think the Democrats are going to pay a price for this in the future
Mhm.
of illegal immigrants come into these communities
Mhm.
and then start damaging people and businesses and
Mhm.
wave the flag of the country they left,
Right.
whether it's Mexico or Jordan or Argentina or you name it. They're waving many of these, mostly Mexican, but many different flags like that. And, the average American nationwide is looking at this going, no, you have no right to even be here, much
Right.
less,
Right.
wave the flag of the country you left.
Hmm. Yeah.
Then if that country was so great, you should want to go back.
Yep. That's right. That's right. So the picture behind me will be a very good advertisement for Republican
Absolutely.
next
Very
year,
good.
2026.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tom. So nice to having you again here and so nice talking with you.
Thank you. Welcome back. And I'm glad you're getting healthier.
Thank you. Thank you. And then I will do the Chinese version later today.
Okay.
And I'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you so much, Tom.